Hello, everyone. This is Mihail Jiu, and this is my friend and collaborator and author on the topics of the fourth way and non-duality, Peter Ingle. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Mihai.
And a long time good friend of mine from when I was a young man. And the purpose of this video is to actually introduce an upcoming immersion that Peter is going to do by himself very soon. We are doing things together. At the same time, we are have our own independent area of work, and I wanted to make sure that everybody who is following me to know about what Peter is doing. And yeah, and I will let you speak about it. I know it's on the topic that is very dear to you, that I find it too very essential on really grounded awakening work on the topic of the transformation or exploration, investigation of negative emotions. And I want to say that I was really like 20 and I met you, and you have already wrote at that time a little booklet with this, a book with this topic that was very scientific and precise on this very important fourth way work of the non-expression of negative emotions and transformation of suffering. And I remember that as a young man, I was really studying and meeting with you, asking you questions about it. And here, after 20 plus years, I'm sure your understanding and your experience with it has deepened a lot. And I would like you to speak a little bit about this upcoming training, like when and what format, as well as from your understanding and experience, why it is so relevant for awakening, enlightenment, or becoming more conscious work to tackle that. And also, it seems like in other teachers or in non-duality, they don't speak much about that. They are going straight towards the circle of the being, of the consciousness. So if you can introduce a little bit about this and about the importance of it.
Yes. First of all, thank you for doing this, for inviting me to talk about this. Yes, it's on August the 3rd. It'll be a day long. It's a Saturday, and it'll be a total of 6 hours, but it'll be in 1.5 hour segments, 90-minute segments, with an hour between each. And it'll be a combination of me presenting some of the fundamental ideas behind this topic of negative emotions as it's addressed in the fourth way by Gurdjieff and Uspensky. And it will be not just me presenting. I'll be asking people to do a little bit of work during the sessions in terms of looking at what their favorite negative emotions are, their most persistent negative emotions, and we'll together be exploring what's behind them and how this is, as you said, connected to awakening, to spiritual growth or development, and that it's a big topic, and that's why I want to do a day-long session. We've touched on it in some of the videos we've done, Mihai. We've gone a little bit in depth on occasion, but it is such a big topic, and I thought it warrants, for those who are interested in going deeper and seeing the connection to conscious awareness and to this imaginary sense of self that we have, this is an important link or catalyst in that regard. And to me, this topic of negative emotions, along with self-remembering, as the fourth way calls it, which you could think of as simply being aware of being here, that along with self-remembering, this topic of negative emotions, these are the two pillars of the psychological aspect of the system, which is taught in the fourth way. And together, these, all the other psychological ideas of the system connect and are part and parcel. These are the culmination. The transformation of negative emotions is the culmination of all of the rest of the psychological ideas of the system. And that's where these ideas are meant to lead a person who investigates this in depth. And with this culmination, you can arrive at the threshold to then what is really what is the cosmological aspect of the system. Higher consciousness. What does this mean? What is awakening? It's talked about so much. The person sitting here talking, we don't awaken. We don't transform. Our consciousness transforms. Our awareness can transmute and essentially be born, if you will, in a higher dimension of awareness. Another way to say it is it's already there, of course. This is what the Eastern traditions and non-dualism, non-duality teachings say. It's already there. But there's a threshold, there's a door. Why can't we go there when we want to, even when we know about it? What's happening? And the fourth way does such a nice job of explaining this. Why this aperture isn't open more often. This aperture to our own awareness. Why isn't it open? What's keeping it shut? And in my experience, it's true that one of the main things keeping it shut is this area of negative emotions, and how negative emotions are a veil for this imaginary sense of I, this imaginary sense of self. And that's what we're going to look at. What are negative emotions? How do they form in us? Why do they happen? What is their source? How are they connected to this imaginary idea of I? And what does all this have to do with the transmutation and transformation of awareness itself? And this should prove to be a valuable day, an interesting 6 hours for those who want to take a good long look inside their psychology. And I would say this too, that one of the things the fourth way does emphasize is the non-expression of negative emotions. And we'll be looking at that and why that is. And I would just say for now, there's an ignition point where something happens, we react right away usually, and in some form or another, we start to indulge in a negative emotion in ourselves. And it can either explode out of us or it can force us in. It can force us to sort of a back room in our psychology or even into the basement. And there's this ignition point that happens. And that's what we'll be looking at first. What is that ignition point? What ignites the negative emotion and gives it permission, you could say, to now explode or to implode? And we'll be looking at that and going deeper. We'll go back as far as we can behind that ignition point, look at it from the psychological point of view. And as I said, to me, this is the culmination, the heart and the culmination of the psychological side of the fourth way system, is this work on negative emotions, of course, hand in hand with self-remembering. As Uspensky said, you can't remember yourself more without working on negative emotions. And you can't work on negative emotions more without remembering yourself. They're two parts of the same coin. They go hand in hand. And this touches on something you said earlier, Mihai. It's not a matter of just trying to be present and remember oneself. The fourth way teaches it's not so easy because there's so much in the way of that. There's so much hindering that, preventing that. And it's a matter of, while also trying to be present, being cognizant of what keeps distracting you from that, pulling you back down into this sense of I, into all these problems, troubles, identifications, most of which are right in this little dome. Interestingly enough, all the negative emotions in your head and body don't trouble me in the least. But all the ones in this head and this body are troubling. Why is that? What's causing that? Why are we attached to that? Why does it keep us entrapped? And you could say that awareness is asleep, as the fourth way says. It's asleep in this sense of identity in this mind and body. And that's true for each person. And it's not the person that transforms, it is this awareness that awakens and realizes it doesn't have to stay trapped. I hope that gives you maybe that gives you some context for if you have any other questions or things you wanted to ask me about or touch on
Yeah,
related to this workshop or this immersion.
yeah, no, that's very rich, and I fully agree. And fully agree with what Peter said and what Gurdjieff and Uspensky and this type of work. I wanted to make a little fine dissociation in case people here they may be you hear this non-expression of negative emotion, and then you may heard of this. There's a lot of the trouble or mental health diagnosis and various issues connected to emotional repression, and you may be like, well, how is that? You may be confused. And so what I want to say about that is that actually it's two distinct types of work. Yeah. So, and what we are talking here, what Peter is talking here, this is the type of emotional unpleasantness, reactivity that comes up either internally and wants to shoot itself out, or it's this spark is inside and then it plays out in the head. So this kind of emotional reactivity that we feel, and this containment, conscious containment, is just the first step. We are not we are not stopping there. We are just containing this useless expenditure of energy that we need to connect to higher states of being, and we contain that, and then we are investigating. One is investigating that concoction, that cocktail, that construction that has a lot of our that we need to see and transcend to awaken, and then with that energy will be transmuted. So we are not just going to be repressed. And the repression work, this is something completely different. This is more connected to emotions we don't even feel, and it's a whole other thing. And they're both necessary, and but it's not talked about. This on just the fourth way that I heard so much so far in the modern day YouTube non-duality awakening work. This is an area that's overlooked.
Yes, and this to speak to what you just said about expression and not non-expression, to withhold the outer expression for the purpose of looking inside. And you can think of it as when we express negative emotions in all its forms outwardly, it can be witnessed as a physical expression. And what's happening is we're giving physical form to our psychological sense of I. When we express, when we display self-pity or anger or impatience or frustration or criticism, or I think I said anger, when we display these, it's a physical display and a physical emission of energy of some kind. It can be high voltage and low amps, or it can be low voltage and high amps, depending on our makeup. And what the purpose of this non-expression, and we'll be going into this in detail in this immersion, is to contain the physical expression, the physical manifestation, for the purpose of being able to look inside and examine the psychological operation and the psychological manufacture of what are called negative emotions. We hear this term negative emotions, and it's worthwhile to examine what is a negative emotion and why do human beings have them and why don't animals have them? Why don't plants have them? We have them because we have a psyche, an ego, a sense of I. And at the root of all of our negative emotions, and we can all have lots of different kinds, both passive and active negative emotions, beneath them all is this sense of I, me. I am negative. I am upset. I am feeling sorry for myself, etc. And so to reiterate, it's the withholding of the outer physical expression and not giving physical form to our psychological feeling of I. Once we do that, once we explode, once it goes out in physical form, it's lost. We can't pull it, we can't bring it back. Our psychological sense of I has now manifested in a physical form, which is a lower dimension than the psychological realm. It's a lower dimension, and it's gone. It's now dispersed. And if you look closely, you can often, it's as though you can watch your psychological sense of I going out of you. Even if you're just sitting self-pity, feeling sorry for yourself, or when you yell at someone or you're irritated and you can almost see your psychological sense of I take physical form, and then it's gone. And this is so fascinating. I mean, even normal psychology, when examining these things, doesn't understand their relationship to consciousness, to awareness, and how that is connected to the ego, and what the ego is, in fact, and then how this is all manifest through these negative emotions. It's a rich, deep, detailed study, and can provide extremely solid groundwork for someone who's interested in deeper spiritual work. It's easy to be in imagination about being present and being more awake and being more conscious. It's a whole nother ball game to look at the inner layers of your psychology beneath all these defense mechanisms, which is what negative emotions are.
Thank you. So I really recommend anybody, also people who are coming to my groups or working with me, I fully resonate and endorse this training with Peter. I would like to go there myself. It's an essential topic for anybody interested in awakening, whether it's the fourth way tradition or a non-duality tradition. And also, if you can show that book, that's a really wonderful book, simple yet very rich, that you wrote on this topic. That is,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I have it. I can show you the cover here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Transforming Negative Emotions by Peter Ingle, and you'll see here the link to this signing up for this immersion, as well as Peter's website, where there are a lot of other books that he wrote on different subjects related to the fourth way, non-duality, as well
And I
as.
wanted to say too, thank you, Mihai, for that endorsement there with the book. Yes, and my books are on Amazon as well, which are easy to find. I wanted to say one more thing about this workshop, this immersion that I'm going to do. I'm also doing it by way of introducing to those who are interested a deeper taste of the system. The fourth way is a way of awakening, a path of awakening, you could say. And the system that Gurdjieff introduced and he and Uspensky taught is you could say it's the guide, the instructions. It's the guidebook. The system itself is not the way, the fourth way. It's simply a set of instructions, a map, a blueprint. It's a way of introducing to the mind how consciousness itself perceives, and in doing so to help the mind align with presence. Presence is what is on the way. Consciousness is what is on the way to itself, to awakening. And the system is just the instructions. But I'm intending to do this also for people who may be interested in studying with me privately as a private group for 1 year, with a very detailed program, which of course would include this study of negative emotions and many other things which are outlined in the system. And I've put together a year-long program which would go on regularly, weekly, over the course of a year, to introduce people who are newly familiar or unfamiliar with the fourth way, who are interested.
Nice. Looking forward to ask you about this in our next video.
Very good.
Also, we'll put here, we have a podcast or a playlist of, I think, over 30 episodes of where Peter and myself delving deep into core ideas of the fourth way, called Reigniting the Fragments of the Fourth Way.
Yes, highly recommended those videos.
All right, everyone. So look forward to seeing you at Peter's workshop, and all the best.
Thank you, Mihai.
Thank you.